We are so pleased and honored again this year at the Milken Global Conference to be joined by Petra Nemcova, obviously well-known model, brand supporter, but also, more importantly, survivor and founder of All Hands and Hearts, an organization which goes into disaster areas often when others won't. They come early, they stay late,
yes.
as you say. And it's important to note because you are obviously so well known, but you're not just the face of this organization. You go to these places, you yourself, and you help out. Where do we stand right now with Puerto Rico relief? We talked about it so much for 2 months, and now it's just off the headlines.
Yes. Well, as you said, we come in early, we stay late, and I go to the locations where we rebuild after natural disasters. Thankfully, I'm not alone. We are powered by volunteers. So far, we have had 56,000 volunteers from 144 countries coming and working 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, under hot sun in Puerto Rico or Mexico or -7 degrees in Nepal, giving their time, love, and sweat for free to help strangers. So it's so beautiful. So that the beautiful thing is that you have this unconditional love. And in Puerto Rico, in particular, we have had volunteers sending application, 400 volunteers a month wanting to come and volunteer, which is amazing.
Is that enough people? Do you have enough people?
Actually, we have to. We can accommodate only 70 people a day. So we have to rotate them depending on how long they are staying for, 2 days or 1 week or 3 weeks. So, but 70 people. So the rest of them, we are trying to encourage them to go to other areas which are in need of volunteers, like Texas, North Carolina. So in Puerto Rico, we have enough volunteers, but the funding is not there, and it's been so heartbreaking. The government of Puerto Rico estimated the damage to be 24 to 32 billion on housing only, and the U.S. government committed to 1 billion. So the gap is so tremendous, and already at the beginning, there are very few organizations who are focusing on housing. Very, very few.
And that's what you guys do, build houses, repair houses.
In Puerto
Put a
Rico.
roof. There's people that don't have a roof. A year later, they don't have electricity still in parts of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, a year later, they didn't have electricity. Now they have electricity, but it took a year for some of the areas to get electricity. Now they have it, but they still have a leakage in the roof. And imagine you're 70, 80 years old without ability to go and fix the roof. And these families, we cater to the most vulnerable families, single moms, families with disabled, and elderly, and they are getting forgotten. And because already at the beginning, very few organizations were there focusing on housing, and some of the big organizations which normally focus on housing are not doing. Habitat for Humanity is focusing on a very important issue, which is land title, which is important, but they are not doing housing. Red Cross is focusing on solar panels, on water and community health, and none of the big organizations are focusing on housing. So we, as a medium-sized organization, we are the biggest providers of housing.
Yeah.
We have helped 666 homes with over 2,500 volunteers, but the need is so much greater, and there are no funding coming in. So it's been really desperate. We committed to stay 2 years. Yeah. We have committed $7 million to help rebuild homes. It costs only $6,000 on average to put family back to safe home, and just the funding is not there.
So for $6,000, you could effectively get somebody a house. But
Yes.
I think this might be your data, and if I screw it up, I apologize. Something like 95% of all the donations for any disaster come within like the first week or two. It's obviously in the headlines. How do we keep the interest up, not just in Puerto Rico,
Yes.
but with anything?
Yes. So what happens the first 2 months, everybody cares because it's out there.
On the front page every day.
Every day. And 70% of the funding for the disaster comes in within those 2 months. Only 5% goes to rebuilding. And the rebuilding is much more costly. And if you focus only on the first response, you cannot build in resilience. So, and the resilience, why is it important? Because if you rebuild a home without a safe way, and then the next hurricane comes and you have to start over again and use finances, time, and other resources. So what we did actually, we got together with Global Citizen and a Good 360 created resident response coalition and to inspire companies to take much more smarter, thoughtful approach to disaster giving. So instead of giving only everything to first response, giving for the long-term recovery, we have to think about the whole arc of a natural disaster. And on average, it takes 4 to 5 years for families to go back on their legs. So we cannot forget them 2 months later. And the same happens with goods. 60% of the goods, they end up in a landfill. So the same with the coalition.
Of the donated goods?
Of donated, unsolicited.
End up in a landfill.
60%. The unsolicited ones. So many times you have, things coming which they are not needed. They are blocking the ports. So the goal of residentresponse.org is to guide companies to deliver goods at the time when they need it, because there's lots of generous care, but the goods which they needed and at the right time they needed, and to deliver the funds across the whole arc of a disaster. That way you can help in a much more effective way and be able to put families back on their legs much faster. And we need to change. We really need to change the way, our habit, how we give. It's a very simple solution. It's not a brain surgery. It's like, instead of giving everything at once, giving it to either organization. So the simple
People
formula.
that know what they're doing.
To organization which does help through the whole arc of a disaster. That's one way to help. Or second, distribute the funds across the first response and the rebuilding. So if you want to put 50% to first response, 50% to rebuilding. So those are two very simple ways how you can help the families in a much smarter way. And we really, each of us as individuals or corporations, we have to change the habit of giving. And the beauty about this, it's simple. You don't have to do big changes. You just have to take smart decisions.
Allhandsandhearts.org. Thank you very much. Petra Nemcova, you are keeping the Puerto Rico disaster on the front pages, at least here with us on CNBC.
Thank you, Brian, for keeping the light on the families in Puerto Rico. They desperately need some love, and I hope they're not going to be forgotten.
You're helping make sure they're not. Petra,
thank you.
Thank you very much.